let's pivot to cultural impact and public reception. So, as you guys know, it was announced 6 months ago now, 7 months ago.
9 months.
9 months.
It was
Wow, yeah.
was it the last hardware release, I think.
They teased it, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So that was when it was announced, and then it came available in the States first.
Yep.
And then
February.
and then more recently in our market last month.
Yeah.
Last month. So
End of
there's
last month.
Yeah. So there's the reception that we saw overseas first, and us sitting in this region going, cool,
Going through TikTok and seeing people in New York sitting on, the train or the subway or whatever.
Exactly.
And everyone was kind of freaking out. And in cafes, I remember seeing a TikTok where 2 people were sitting at a cafe just honed in on their Apple Vision, but they were still having a conversation and people were so confused of how it was actually working.
There's this other one of 2 guys at a Chinese restaurant eating their noodles and just both wearing Vision Pro.
Wow.
Just how it is, that type of thing. And hearing some of or reading some of the reviews that initially came through, quotes like "feels like the future," or "it's like sticking an IMAX theater to your face." I think you guys mentioned that before. Or questioning who it's really for. It being so forward thinking and forward in terms of its technology. And then there was another one that said, the most Apple product ever. Beautiful, over-engineered and overpriced. Well, you'd expect Apple to do nothing less, but to really own it, own that space.
They're not going to do it unless it's perfect. So.
Exactly.
No. I think the over-engineered stuff definitely comes across. It's literally perfect.
Yeah.
Interface is beautiful to be in, but also it's so capable for so many users. It's accessibility driven. While it's eye-focused, hand-focused, there's so many accessibility features that Apple already has that's been brought into this product from day zero. That means it's basically achievable to do anything for anybody.
And Apple's been very focused on accessibility, even on the Mac platform, as we know.
Yeah.
So no surprises there, but I mean, it's a world of possibility around.
Well, that's the thing. Imagine how much better it's going to get, in a couple of years with each release.
And for the vision impaired, you were speaking about this earlier around how they can use the phone as quick as us, even quicker, right?
A lot quicker, yeah. I mean, the accessibility features are driven around people being able to use the device. And historically, devices have been kind of visually and physically bound. A button says press and you press it.
Yeah.
And Apple's kind of gone away from that, and you can use the interface however you please.
And going off physically as well, I think it's super important to note that people who may not be able to actually go, on Safari or go on a cruise or something like that can now get something like an Apple Vision Pro and sit in that environment and actually get as close as they can to it without physically being there, which I think is a really positive thing.
Which really touches on how immersive the experience is. And we're getting there. We'll tell you about our experiences.
That was one thing I was so surprised and shocked about, and it really, hit home for me, I think.
How will it change the way people interact and technology, both in a positive way or a negative way?
I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and I think it's interesting how we might eventually move away from having to pick up a phone and pick up a laptop every morning. When you go to work, you're picking those things up. You don't have to carry those things around anymore. You're going to, in maybe 5 or 10 years' time, you're going to be able to put your watch on, you're going to be able to put your glasses on or your goggles, your Apple Vision Pro, and off you go for the rest of the day. And that's it. That's all you're going to need.
I think it was that conversation we were having earlier this morning about how it didn't click to me that it's a standalone device because it not being a phone and it being something outside of a phone naturally makes it feel like it's periphery, like a watch.
Yep.
My watch needs my phone to understand data and get connection, all that kind of stuff. And
well, even to set it up.
So when you made the point that this is its own device and you can just have that and that's it if you wanted, was kind of like
well, when you think about
shift.
it as well, when was the last time Apple released something that was its own standalone device, for the first
category.
time. Yeah. So it's created a new category.
So positive and negative, like how would this change the way people interact in technology?
I think we're going to be able to interact with data in front of us physically, and move around objects that we might not have been able to move around before. We'll be able to visualize stuff before we put it into production. Everything is focused around the experiences that we can do in the real world that cost quite a lot of money. If you go and get a prototype made, that could cost the company a lot of money. But having it 3D in front of you in an Apple Vision Pro may not cost as much. Won't cost as much.
As much. I think this also...
In the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think this also ties into what you were saying before about life imitating art and this sort of like the Black Mirror effect.
Well, I think that's what everyone's scared of.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, especially during COVID, I think that's when the latest season of Black Mirror came out. And there was a few things that it touched on with, AR and VR and all that kind of stuff.
So maybe a few steps back. What's Black Mirror? For those not in our space.
It's a TV series that touches on, it's very sci-fi based, but more of like dystopian reality, which, has a lot to do with this kind of stuff.
And I've noticed some of those episodes feel not so far into the future. It feels like maybe 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. So it creates episodes around possible realities that are just within reach.
And you see, I know with one episode, a very similar thing where they're creating their own environment and it's all based off a score and things like that. And obviously it all turns not necessarily, well. It turns out to be a little bit negative, but I think that's what people have to compare to at the moment in their head and what could come of this. And so I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword whether people like the idea of it or not.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're quite a while away from it, to be honest. In a couple of years. We might see a little Black Mirror-esque, but we'll see what happens.
Do you think your experience changed that?
Definitely. I mean, I wasn't super negative on it. I mean, I was a little bit standoffish because I've never experienced any kind of, alternate reality kind of thing. So until I used it, it completely changed my view on it. I think it could be really cool.
On the cultural impact front, like naturally you're thinking, oh, geez, are we just going to see everyone wearing these everywhere type thing? Is that what reality is going to look like? But an immediate a benefit, or at least a use case, is in those unavoidable situations where you are isolated. Let's say you're a remote worker or you physically can't be at a certain place. In those instances, it feels very normal or expected to fill those gaps. But I am kind of with you guys. Like, it's a little bit scary to see how you want it to be adopted, but you don't want it to be adopted too fast.
I'm kind of excited to see how quickly it comes about. And then, I was talking to my mum about it and telling her how surprised I was of how much I enjoyed it. And, she brought up the whole topic of imagine if this came out during COVID. So just before COVID, when everyone was put in lockdown. And I know during my demo, they showed us a lot of different videos and photos that immersed you into that environment so you didn't miss nieces and nephews' birthdays and things like that. So I think maybe COVID put it into perspective for Apple to speed it up, I think. I don't know.
Spatial video, spatial photo.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
So no one actually technically misses it because you felt like you were there.
Yeah.
You felt like they literally blew the candles in front of you, and it's nice. So it would have been interesting if it came out back then, but I think that's definitely the way we're moving.
Maybe another way to frame it is we value immersion differently now.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that we have come from a world where we've just been,
segregated. Almost, yeah.
It just got a little dark. Yes, but yes.
But I mean, COVID was dark though, right?
Yeah,
imagine how much better that would have possibly made it for some people.
I don't think we know how significant that, milestone or time in our lives, like, it's just literally once in a lifetime, like that whole ordeal.
We hope it's once in a lifetime.
Well, yeah. Well, if it happens again, I'll have a Vision Pro and I'll be ready.
Yeah.
You'll have an Apple Vision Pro and you'll be happy.
Be very ready.
I mean, for instance, I worked in a hospital during COVID, and I remember used to having a lot of iPads that we had to have ready for the patients so they could communicate with loved ones at home. And I can just imagine the difference it would have made to actually have Apple Vision to communicate instead.
Or even being able to take spatial videos of them in that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And send it to loved ones. Absolutely.
I actually started shooting in spatial on my 15 Pro Max of my kids.
Yeah.
And just these little moments where we're on the couch and I'm just like, I'll just toggle that feature on for when we consume media in that way.
It's actually not that much bigger as well, file size.
File size? Oh, no, I didn't pay attention to the file size. Interesting. Okay.
He did tell me specifics during the demo. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Right.
I can look them up. But
cool.
It's not that much more.
Oh, that's,
compared to what we already shoot in.
Yeah.
Well, in Vision OS 2, which should be coming later this year, there will be the ability to adapt your current photos into spatial photos. So you don't have to have taken them on a spatial enabled camera.
Yeah.
It's something that you can do post-edit.
And is that a ML type feature?
It is, using on-device
machine learning.
Yeah.